Welcome to Emory University's Goizueta's Business School. Today's web chat is going to be about how you can prepare your very best Master of Science in Business Analytics application. My name is Allison Jacobs, and I am the Assistant Director of the MSBA program at the Goizueta Business School. I'm joined today with two of our very recent alumni, Frank Lee and Charlotte Higgins-Ayati. And we're going to spend the next hour with you talking to you a little bit more about the program, the Goizueta Business School culture, as well as providing you tips and hints on how you can best prepare your application and stand out from the crowd when you apply to the MSBA program. Before we get started, though, I would just like to cover a few housekeeping items. First of all, we are recording this webinar in its entirety, and we'll be able to send it out to you in the next 5 to 7 days. So please don't worry if you have to step away or your connection is not great. Also, we would like this webinar to be as interactive as possible, so please use the chat box in the webinar portal and ask any questions that you may have, and we will try to address those live on air. Before we get started, though, I would like for each of our panelists to introduce themselves by giving you just a little bit about their background, why they came to the MSBA program, and what they're currently doing today. Frank, if you would like to get started.
Sure. So my name is Frank Lee, and I graduated from MSBA last year, which is 2018. And I had my undergraduate in financial engineering from Shandong University of Finance and Economics. I'm currently working as a data scientist at Cox Automotive. My daily job involves actually a lot of what I learned back in the school. I'm using Tableau visualization tools and SQL, Python scripting language to process data and create visualizations to support higher level people's decision-making process. My report is being sent directly to CFO and chief economist of the company. And the other side, our team and my future project is going to involve in a little bit more about product engineering, where we are going to provide some personalization function within our daily website, within our daily user interaction, so that our business customers are able to get what they potentially like in their subscription service.
Perfect. Charlotte?
Hi guys, so my name is Charlotte. I'm a BBA, or I was a BBA MSBA, graduated in 2019. For those of you who don't know what that means, I essentially was an undergrad here at Emory, or still am actually, and I took a little hiatus from my undergrad to do the MSBA program during my senior year, and now I'm back for one more semester to finish out my undergrad classes. So I don't have as much work experience as Frank does, but this summer I worked at a consulting firm, and although it wasn't a data science specific job, I was really able to use some of the data science skills to be able to provide for the client, which was really awesome, and I'll go into more detail with that later. But as for me, I didn't come in with a specifically technical background. I actually have an undergrad, or I'm pursuing an undergrad degree in organization and management. So for me, coming into this program was a really big deal because I was really able to hone in on the data skills that I really enjoyed in my undergrad and explore that in a way in which I could frame it all about business and sort of be able to provide the best value for clients and be able to provide the best value in my schoolwork. So that's sort of how I ended up here, and yeah.
Perfect. So I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about the MSBA program here at Goizueta. Having been in admissions for a number of years, I find that truly some of the best applications come from those candidates that have done very thorough research on the program and the school that they are applying to. So first of all, congratulations on being on this web chat, because this is truly your first step to really finding out more about the program and whether it's going to be a good fit for you and your career goals. But this is not going to be the end of your research. I hope that after this web chat, you will continue to learn more about the program by speaking to our current students and alums, by really getting to know Goizueta a bit better, and maybe even hopefully visiting campus. So for some of you, you may know that the Goizueta Business School at Emory University is very well known for our top-ranked MBA and BBA program. About 3 years ago, one of our MBA professors, Dr. Ram Shalapa, developed the MSBA program, and we are now getting ready to go into the fall semester of our third cohort. The MSBA was developed to develop students to become business data scientists. It is a very intensive 10-month program, which is focused on machine learning, data mining, visualization, but it's all taught from business faculty with a business perspective. This program has been designated as STEM program, and what that means for you as potentially international students is that this program will provide you with 3 years of optional practical training to work in the US before visa sponsorship is required. I would like to briefly just show you the curriculum. The 10 months actually begins in July with 3 boot camps, a business boot camp, a math boot camp, and a technology boot camp. You also will take a 2-credit-hour stats course during this time frame before starting your very technical fall semester, which is designed to provide you with the skills and knowledge to be dangerous as a business data scientist. Your second semester is really about the application of those skills, including a Capstone Project, which will last about 3.5 months, where you are using a company's data to solve their business problem. And we'll talk a little bit more about that Capstone Project later in the webinar today. But I would like to take this time now to address the panel with the question of, why did you choose the MSBA program at Goizueta? As we all know, there are a lot of options out there, and really what drew you to the program here? Frank, would you like to start with that question?
Yeah. So actually, I applied for multiple MSB programs and was lucky to get accepted. But what I realized when I was comparing up these programs is that there's 2 advantages of the Goizueta MBA that cannot be matched from other programs. First, this program, as Allison said, was developed from scratch by Dr. Jalapa, meaning that all of the courses are designed specifically for this program. We don't have courses that are modified from MBA curriculum or other like accounting curriculum to be modified into the MSBA program, meaning that these courses are really technical compared to other business schools courses. We have 3 machine learning on our curriculum, and we also have big data, and we're going to use AWS and Hadoop ecosystem. So I do feel like the curriculum itself and how it was designed from the initial point was really impressive to me. And also the other point is that it's a really, really small program, so you do have a lot of interpersonal interaction with your classmates, your teammates, your professor, your career service, and even your director. It's all open door. You can go in there and talk to them all the time. I feel like that is something that is really rare nowadays.
And Charlotte, from your perspective, you were a business student and you decided to go to this very technical curriculum. So can you talk to us a little bit about why you made this decision, and maybe then also how you prepared yourself to technically do well in the program?
Right. So the little anecdote that I love about my undergrad and why I wanted to pursue this program in the first place is because I got really close with one of my professors in a more statistics-based class in undergrad. And we, one time in office hours, had this conversation, and he basically proved to me through numbers that this law that was recently passed wouldn't solve the issue that it was trying to achieve. And he could prove all this with data. And so that really sparked my interest. That was my sophomore year. And ever since then, data has been something that I've been really interested in and really wanting to pursue for the sake of being able to provide people with a really concrete example and a really concrete explanation as to why something can or can't happen. And so for me, I was always had a little bit more of an aptitude towards data than most of my undergrad peers, but I did not have the same like coding and technical specific background. So what I ended up doing to be able to prepare for this was actually taking a pretty long break between my undergrad and my starting in the MSBA program in mid-July, just to basically, for 6 to 8 hours a day, practice coding. So that means getting on those programs that Allison sent us right before we started the program. So that was all data camp related, so we got to really hammer in on some Python skills. We got to hammer in SQL, but also the other thing that I really wish that I did that I think would be some good advice for somebody in the future is like really looking into Kaggle data sets and just like practicing these skills, not just in a course, but in a place where, you know, you really get hands-on data and you really get the opportunity to explore it.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a couple of good points. One is that, as Frank mentioned, our class size is very small. So in the last year, we had 44 students. This year, we currently have 44 students. In Frank's class, we had 37, so it was even smaller. But we do recruit from a wide variety of backgrounds. About 40% of our current cohort is coming from business or non-technical backgrounds. So we do take a lot of effort once you are accepted, as Charlotte mentioned, to provide you with resources for you to build your coding skills so that by the time you start in July, you are comfortable with Python, R, and SQL. You can see from the slide that we recruit students with high GPAs. Our average GMAT this year is around 722. About 40% of our students do have work experience, but this is something that is not required going into the program. But if you do have work experience, it's something that we certainly value. We purposely keep our class size very small at Goizueta because there's a lot of things that we do outside of the classroom to really train you as a business data scientist. And some of those programs include putting you through a very intensive leadership program. We do a lot of professional development with regards to your communication skills. We also run a business consulting boot camp the entire year to build your problem-solving skills and really your business acumen and how to communicate with those that may not come from a technical background. So I'd like to take a minute to ask both Charlotte and Frank what their experience was like outside of the classroom and maybe one of some of those memorable things that they did that truly developed them as the business professionals they are today. So Charlotte, we'll get started with you this time if you would like to talk about some of those extracurricular, co-curricular things we did.
Okay, sure. So one of the things that I found really helpful during the MSBA program is we really got a lot of one-on-one time with an MBA coach. So for us, we were in a group of highly technical people who were doing all data science projects. So when we had, you know, like presentations or we had, like issues between our team or just anything that we were like trying to solve in a more business-focused way, we would go ahead and talk to our MBA about it. He would be the person that we would, or ours was a guy, so he would be the person that we would sort of go to talk about our presentations to make sure that that a business person would understand that we were articulating ourselves in the most, you know, business language type of way so that it would be a really fluid understanding thing. In terms of the classroom dynamics and the way that we sort of operated as a cohort, like these are the closest friends I could have ever imagined. It was a really collaborative environment. We had programs essentially on a weekly basis in terms of leadership and career development, et cetera. But the real kicker for me about this program was that small, close-knit, teacher-oriented, student-oriented environment was really what carried all of us through. I mean, we were spending all day, every day with the people in our cohort, and they ended up being some of my best friends that I had at Emory in my 4 years here. So some really close relationships developed and built.
Perfect. Frank, would you like to elaborate on some of the things that you remember? Frank graduated in 2018, so this was our very first cohort. So what really stands out to you?
Yeah, sure. So at the beginning, we had summer consulting program, a boot camp, which was run by Professor Noonan, who is a really good guy, and he got his PhD from Harvard and worked for McKinsey as manager level people. I feel like that was the boot camp that gave me the instinct into consulting, because he had deep consulting experience as well as research experience, and outside all of these technology courses out there, we actually get direct consulting interactions about how to talk to client and how to solve their problem, how to solve their problem in a structured way. And his method is pretty similar to a book called The McKinsey Way, which is now considered the Bible of consulting. So you do actually have a shorter version of that and have an interpersonal version of that in your mind before you even start the technology courses, before you even start to interact with your client from the Capstone Project. And the second part, I realized that, like Charlotte talked about MBA mentorship, stuff like that. So I do want to focus on that. There's a lot of speakers and there's a lot of people working in the industry outside of school come into your classroom every week to talk to you. And while you are talking to them, actually, you know how they frame these words, how they frame these words, and how do they talk about these things with based on their different background, because they do have technical background and they do have pure business background, how they talk about these things. And when you learn about how to talk about these data science things to business people, and you know this consulting strategy, you're actually going to be a winner in this field.
Wonderful. And you both made references to our Capstone project. And this project is something that all of our students will take part in. As a member of a 4-person team, we actually will have 11 different projects, which you as a student will have a say into which project you will be placed on. And this is truly where you will serve as a consultant to a company using their data to solve their business problem. Each year, some of our capstone companies will change, although some of them will stay the same. FedEx will continue to be on our PowerPoint slide, as they are one of our founding sponsors, and donated $5 million to our program to have a consulting project each year. So Frank and Charlotte, can you talk to us a little bit about your project? I know in some cases the students do sign non-disclosure agreements, so we may not be able to hear which company you worked on, but if you could just kind of walk through some of the things you were able to accomplish on that Capstone project and how you feel it has prepared you to go out and work in your internship and now your current job. So Charlotte, if you want to get started again, that would be great.
Yeah, so I view the Capstone as one of the greatest learning experiences of the program in terms of what does this mean in real time and in real life. So for my project, we focused mostly on analyzing customer demographics for a company, and essentially we had to not only examine and prove what their customer segmentation was, but then also sort of predict how much money they could expect and how much revenue they could expect from each of these different groups. So that sounds like a very big problem, especially with a company as large as the one I was working with. But what was really useful about the Capstone project was how much one-on-one attention that we got with the client that we had. So I'd mentioned earlier, I actually worked at a consulting firm this summer. And what was funny to me going through this summer was basically like, I did a lot of what I did in my consulting internship throughout the Capstone project, but at a higher level. The upper levels at my consulting firm were basically the equivalent, or doing the equivalent work to what I was doing in my Capstone. There was so much autonomy that we had. We had so much attention from the client. They listened to us, and it was really our job to provide really keen and well thought out deliverables. And I mean, honestly, that really carried me through my internship, and it was the level of professionalism that you had to develop to be able to handle those sorts of things. But really getting the opportunity to sort of dive into all the issues that you wouldn't have necessarily expected. I mean, in the MSBA program, you're definitely going to see a lot of dirty data sets, but having to go in and see somebody's data set where maybe they don't have a lot of data scientists working on it consistently, so it could really be a huge mess. Or you know, they don't necessarily know the problem that they want to solve. A lot of times in school, it's more clear cut than what a client would want necessarily. So really having to dive into that and figure out in real time what does this actually mean for a client? What's the greater point, and what can we actually achieve for them if their goal can't necessarily be met, was a really differentiating experience.
Wonderful. What about you, Frank? What was your Capstone experience like?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that because I'm working now for my Capstone sponsor, and I would say it was really valuable experience. Although I didn't work for them right after the graduation, but that Capstone project still landed me into another consulting experience. So I want to say that you're actually doing a consulting project with both a technical strategy and a business strategy. So the client is super engaged. So we were assigned to talk to our client, which is directly the team's manager, like every week, and they actually delegate like 1 hour for us, just team of 4, every 1 hour of us every week. So that is a lot of involvement from the client in the first place. And then we have to report to our professor in a technical way every week as well. So you do feel like you're doing a consulting project part-time or nearly full-time, and a lot of times you have a lot of deliverables and you have well-guided structure to follow, but still you have a lot of flexibility to create something that the client never seen before, because he's a business manager. He knows a ton about a business, but he doesn't know what machine learning can do for them, what can cloud computing do for them, and how can these things to be delivered. So I do feel like it's adding value to the client and to yourself.
Well, and Frank, that's so interesting that you're now working for your Capstone client, and that's certainly a benefit to the Capstone project, is really getting to work with professionals and developing those skills. But all throughout the program, including even before you start, we really start working with you on the career services and career advancement process here. We have a dedicated staff to help you understand where in the data science universe do you fit in, and I think that's something both Frank and Charlotte will be able to talk to. Also have a lot of speakers come in, a lot of Goizueta alum come in to help educate the students on the different types of opportunities out there. So as I mentioned, Frank graduated in 2018 in the very first cohort. We're very excited to have received 100% placement with that cohort in a wide variety of companies and a wide variety of industries. So Frank, can you talk to us a little bit about your experience with our career services and maybe some things that you really felt helped you along the way to end up where you are as a data scientist at Cox Automotive?
Yeah. So as I said at the beginning, this program itself is really interpersonal, meaning that the career service, of course it is. So it's always open door, and whenever you want to talk to the career coach, you can actually just jump in and say, I want to have a one-on-one session with you, or I want to have a mock interview with you. So I think that's the best point of this career service. And so during my job hunting process, I did have an early offer from the beginning, and that was not because I was really under pressure as an international student, and I feel like if I have an offer, I have to sign it. And then the career coach actually told me that no, it's not necessarily the best offer for you, and if this is not what you want to do, we're going to find you a better one. So that was a decision that the career service helped me to make. And of course, there's also part of the career service that help you to revise your resume from day one and keep it updated, and how basically teach you your interview strategy and as international student, and how do you want to present your strengths, like I'm a more technical person or I'm more like a business-oriented person where I want to fit into a business role, something like that. So I do feel like I have like everyday interaction with my career coach from day one. So that's what I really appreciate the career coaching.
Perfect. And Charlotte, you are in a little bit different situation as a BBA, MSBA. You did have an opportunity to do an internship.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about your internship this summer and maybe how you felt like you stood apart from the rest of your fellow interns.
Yeah, it was fun. But one thing that I really liked about what Frank said was basically like, the career coach is really able to help you with the real spectrum here between business and technology. And I mean, if it hasn't become apparent throughout this, I kind of started out with a really highly business background. And so I went into a traditional business consulting internship. But the thing that was really cool about this program and about my job is something that they tell us in the real beginning is, okay, there's a lot of you who are going to be data scientists, and then there's a lot of you who are going to be able to come in and be the most data savvy and most technical person in a company that hasn't done data science traditionally, and you're going to be able to do wonders for that company. And that's sort of where I felt like I was able to hammer home my skills during my internship. So the role that I had did not traditionally use data science in any capacity at all, but I felt like I was really able to stand out because of some of the skills that I was able to bring in. In my first week, there was this process that our client was doing that was taking them, it was going to take them 36 hours that week for one person to do it. And they had kept doing this process over and over throughout their time on this project. It was a multi-year long project. And so I just said to my advisor, I was like, you know what, we can do this in less than 2 hours by coding it out, right? And I mean, none of them really believed me at first. But then I just like got on a plane ride back from the client, and I just did it on my plane ride. By the time I was off the plane, I had this code written to be able to automate this process for forever for this client, so they didn't have to waste all that time. I mean, and that was 36 hours one week, but who knows how long it was going to be for the rest. And then also another thing I was able to do during my internship was sort of analyze culture for companies using natural language processing. So that means like basically pulling all this data from Glassdoor and clustering all the topics that people are talking about, whether that be like payroll and benefits, or that be, leadership and management, and sort of get a sentiment about what everybody's feeling about those different topics. And then when I presented that at the end of my summer, I mean, it was clearly something that they hadn't seen before, and that, I mean, people from across the company were really interested in. And it was just like, for me, one of those moments where it was like, okay, we can really use this in every capacity. And it might not be, I mean, in my instance, not a data science specific role, but data science will play a really major role in, perfecting what you're saying to the client and making sure that your deliverables look neat and tidy and, providing something really different. That's the real key.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I think some of the key themes that we've learned so far with Frank and Charlotte is that the small class size of this program really provides opportunities for them to gain their business professional and consulting skill set. At the same time, the curriculum really provides them the technical skills to go out and stand out from their peers and really make differences by making data-driven decisions and techniques that are going to help companies optimize their processes in the future. So now I would like to switch our gears a little bit and talk about the application process. It's a common theme that we are looking for people that have the technical background, the business savvy, academic excellence, strong test scores. So that may sound very intimidating to you at this point in time. But I'd really like to break down the application process at this point and have Frank and Charlotte talk about some of the things that they feel like maybe they did during the application process that helped them stand out. So just as you're thinking about the process, you are going to apply online. and complete an application. That application is going to have you include information about your educational background, your technical skills, your work experience, your internships, as well as essays and a new video question that we have, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You're also going to submit your GMAT or GRE scores, your TOEFL or IELTS scores if you were educated at an institution that is not in English, and then also letters of recommendation as well as your transcripts from your university. All of that will complete an application at that point. Myself and some of my colleagues will review your application and determine whether or not to interview you. And at that point, we will do an interview either via an online portal or maybe in person, depending on where you're located. And at that point, then we'll make that admission decision. So Frank and Charlotte, this sounds very intimidating. How did you approach the application process, and what do you feel like really helped you stand out from all the applications that we did receive for this program? Frank, if you want to get started.
Yeah, for sure. So because my application was 2 years ago, so I might not be able to talk about the video interview part, but I do feel like even back in the time we have a technical experience part where we need to write down like 5 technical experiences. I do feel like that that part of the application is really important. You want to focus a little bit more on the written essay as well as that technical experience while you are doing your online application. But after that, I would say the interview is definitely going to decide whether you're going to get into the program or not. Before that, you're focusing more on your technical experience and what you did regarding data science, stuff like that. But once you are in the interview, you are doing a purely business school interview, meaning that you need to start a conversation with a stranger in a really short time. And a lot of times, Allison, who might be the interviewer, is actually choosing the classmate of the next cohort on behalf of the classmate, on behalf of the next cohort. So you want to make sure that you are a good team player, you are friendly, you're easy to work with. I mean, that is something really important instead of being a good exam taker while still in the interview. So I do feel like those are 2 points I want to mention for the application process.
Perfect. And Charlotte, you came in without that technical section being very strong. So what do you feel really helped you in this process?
Right. So I feel like when I look back on it, there are 3 major things that I did that I think helped me a lot. And one of them was actually networking, and then I guess just practicing, and then also just having a really strong purpose. So, I mean, like with a lot of jobs, obviously in business, traditionally you have to sort of get a feel for the field here. So you go ahead and you talk to a whole bunch of people and you network with them, you get on the phone, you meet them in person, you figure out what the job and the company really entails. And I felt like my pursuing that in MSBA was something that really helped me with my application, because not only did I get a lot of face time with a lot of people who were doing the work, it was also I figured out more about what exactly they were doing and what the vocabulary was like, and just sort of the feel for the program, the level of intensity. I mean, it was one of those things where it's like you're finding out if it's the right fit for you while also learning in the process. So really meeting as many MSBAs, and Allison, of course, as well, as possible, I felt really helped me. And that also was sort of what helped me figure out the purpose, which I guess I'll talk about that now, which was basically like having a really strong foundational understanding of why this is a goal for you and why you really want to pursue this. Especially as a traditionally business-focused person, for me it was, why do I want to do this as opposed to just traditional consulting? And why do I want to do this as opposed to any other career that I could possibly pursue? And the answer is really different for everyone, but for me it was, I essentially don't believe in anything that doesn't have data science to back it up. If you don't have the numbers and the statistics, then I don't I mean, I don't necessarily see how you can make a strong claim without something like that. And also just the efficiency and the ability to give it to a client. So really understanding your purpose, I think, in your essay and in your interview as well will really take the cake. But then finally, just practicing. I mean, before you get into your interview and before you start, even signing up to do the application in the first place, checking out to see if data sets are intriguing to you and looking at Kaggle to make sure that some of the stuff you're seeing is really interesting. Or, I don't know, just practicing coding on your own, downloading the programs, just getting a feel for it. And then when it comes to the point in which you're interviewing, again, you'll understand the vocabulary more. You'll really, you'll have a little bit of experience, and then really having a structured plan. So I knew, and this is something I really talked about during my interview as well, I knew I was going to take that break to be able to practice my coding and play around with data sets before I started. So having a structured plan for everything that you plan to do to be able to succeed in the MSBA program, I think that will help you no matter how much technical background you have, but particularly if you don't necessarily have the strongest.
Yeah, no, this is actually perfect. So one of the things, having been the person that reviews quite a few applications, one of the things that I really look for in the application is have you demonstrated a passion for data business analytics. I think this is not an easy degree. It is not a walk in the park, and maybe we can cover some of that a little bit later. So what I'm really looking for is have you done your research, not just on us as a program, but on this as a career, as Charlotte mentioned. And I do remember, and Frank, it was 2 years ago, and I'm getting old now, so I don't remember the details of our interview as well as I do Charlotte's, but I do remember that she was just so passionate. She had talked to so many people about why this was a good career for her. And she totally convinced myself, as well as Dr. Shalapa, that she was going to do what it takes to build those technical skills before the program starts. So Charlotte, you mentioned Kaggle. For those of you that don't know, Kaggle is, and they might be able to explain it better than me, but basically an online resource for you to go out and play with data and form teams. And certainly when I see Kaggle on a resume that someone has participated in a Kaggle competition, that shows me that this person is passionate about this field. But what other things do you think some of our audience members could be doing now to A, figure out if this is right for them, and B, to get some of that experience? Frank, do you want to give some advice?
Yes. So first of all, you want to have your test scores ready before you move on to the next step, of course. But I do feel like that is really helpful for me back in the time. I didn't start with Kaggle. I took a lot of courses on Coursera before I came into here, and that's what I mentioned to Allison even while I was interviewing. So, and that was the only part I remember about the interview. So those courses actually are more like pre-course before you get into the MSBA program, talking about data management skill and data manipulating skill with Python, SQL, and a little bit more about machine learning, where you have yourself better prepared both for the program and at the beginning of the application and the interview. I do feel like if you don't have a pure technical background or like a lot of technical experience, that would be something you can consider right after you have your task already and you have your essay written down and ready to apply. That's something really helpful, both in the conversation part, and it's gonna come back to you when you start the program anyway. So.
Yeah.
Perfect. Charlotte, what other things other than Kaggle? I know you said you mentioned you did some online courses too.
I thought the data camp was really, really helpful. I mean, okay, so for me, a really big part of it was sort of understanding the field a little better and understanding the vocabulary better. So honestly, even just going ahead and reading articles about how machine learning and artificial intelligence are implemented in the business world is really helpful. A lot of, I know consulting firms, because obviously I work for one in the summer, but a lot of firms in general, I think, They release publications about how they're using data in the workplace, really looking at the future of what people are desiring. And then also it's just, I mean, okay, of course YouTube is really helpful, but in general, just like sitting there, downloading data science, playing with them. I mean, honestly, I think a really good place to do it would be Tableau also, because it's a little bit, it's done for you to a degree. Or also RapidMiner, because you get the vocabulary and you get the tools, but you're not necessarily sitting there coding out everything, but now you sort of get a better idea of what the process looks like. Because, I mean, you can sort of, the way that RapidMiner will work is you sort of click and drag data science concepts and tools into a box with data so that it'll sort of flow through naturally. So you can sort of play around with these tools to get a greater understanding of the conceptual ideas behind it, but also like practicing on DataCamp and, like you said, Coursera. Those will really handle, you know.
Yeah, and that's certainly something that I notice in applications. And sometimes you might say, well, where do I put something like that? Well, that's something that definitely can come out in your essays, because your essays are really designed for us to understand the level of research that you've done in this field and some of the things that you've done to prepare yourself, as well as that technical section that we talked about as well. So one of the things that I also look for is that many schools now are hosting hackathons. So that's something that you could hopefully get involved in this year. Also, some of the schools through the ASA host data fests. And those are always things that pop out, whether it be on your resume or application. So I want to talk briefly about the way our new video is being structured. So in the past, the video was basically a question and you had a minute to answer this question. You could take as much time as you needed to prepare your answer and then 4 times to actually have it recorded. This time it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be, there's about 100 random questions that are going to be generated, and you're going to have one pop up for you. You're going to have 1 minute to prepare, and then you will have 1 minute to actually answer that question, and you'll have about 3 to 4 times to get that right. So this may sound a little bit intimidating, but one of the things I can tell you is that a lot of times these questions are going to be around the core values at Goizueta. And those core values are something that we not only live every day in everything we do here, but also look for when we are reviewing applicants to see if they share those core values. And those values can be found on our website as well as a number of our promotional items that are out there. So my question to these guys is, what recommendation do you have for our applicants to get to know Goizueta better? You know, we talked about how they can prepare themselves, but how can they really get to know what it's like here, what the culture is like here? Give the audience some tips. Charlotte, you've been here a while. Yeah, Charlotte's been here for a while. So what comes to your mind?
Well, I'll tell you first off something that I find, like, first off, what my impressions of the culture here. It is a really, like, one thing that we're really lucky to have here is how diverse it is, and I love that. There are people from all over the world, and from a lot of different backgrounds, and Goizueta really has everything. The people are wildly intelligent, extremely academic. So these are some things that, exploring this further, I think would really help you sort of figuring out the landscape here, and then also just figuring out if it's the right fit for you. So, please come to campus. Definitely come to campus. Do your research. There's a lot of videos that Emory will produce online, and a lot of the the professors in the MSBA program, they have things that you can read online that they've written or done or accomplished, and there's some really impressive stuff out there. But it's really visiting, please, and then also just coming to talk to us as much as possible. I mean, I know, for sure I would be willing to talk to you guys. So it's really a matter of just like looking us up on LinkedIn and like reaching out, because I mean, we're really willing to talk. But that's sort of what Emory and Goizueta is about. It's diversity, it's an inclusion, and it's really smart people who want to get to know each other and help each other out and collaborate. So
Perfect. Frank?
Yeah, I will also say that, yeah, it is really collaborative environment here at Goizueta, within your class, outside your class, with MBAs, or with your alumni out there already in the industry. Because, I mean, Goizueta is the best business school here in Atlanta, and if you go on LinkedIn and look at the management level people of a lot of large companies, you realize that they all have somehow some Goizueta interaction, whether it's the executive program or it's MBA or it's even the MBA. So, and they're willing to help you because of the Goizueta value and the Goizueta culture they experienced back in the time. And you can feel free to reach out to them and talk with them how was their Goizueta experience and how they view business analytics as a program and business analytics within the industry. I think that can be really helpful for you if you want to understand more about the culture. But the best way is definitely to come here to the campus to visit if you have the availability, and that's really helpful as well.
Yeah. Perfect. So I do think we have covered a good bit on the application. So I would briefly like to talk a little bit about financing your MSBA. We are happy to be able to offer scholarships for our top applicants. You will be considered for scholarship at the same time that you are considered for admissions. So you do not need to do anything extra. The second piece is that I feel very unique to the Goizueta Business School is that we actually offer a loan to our international students. This loan is through the Emory Credit Union, and it does not require a U.S. cosigner. And this loan is payable over 30 years and also has a very competitive interest rate. I can tell you that the average payback period for that loan from our MBA students is about 5 years. So that just is a testament to the types of jobs and salaries that our alumni are going out there and getting in the marketplace. We are approaching our first application deadline. October 4th is the date. This is our number one priority deadline. So this is where we are really going to be rewarding the people who are on it and ready to get everything in early on. So we do award scholarships in that first and second deadline. I just want to have you pay attention to the third deadline, which is January 3rd. That deadline will be the last deadline for our students with international credentials, because we do want to make sure we have time to get the I-20s out and make sure that you have time to get to the embassy and get your F-1 visa in place. So if you are coming from an international university, please make note of that January 3rd deadline. So in closing, I think what we would like to really convey through this is that this is a very unique and special program where you are going to get a lot of individualized attention in the program as well as through the admissions process. My colleague Kip Powers and I are a team to make sure that this process is as smooth as possible for you. I think the key with the application process is really just doing your research and getting to know us, myself, our alums, our current students, and hopefully making that visit to campus. But I also want to give our panelists just a little bit of time to give some closing words as well. And then we will open up to any questions that we have not yet addressed. So Frank, any just tips and advice, thinking that you were in their shoes just as few as 2-3 years ago?
Yeah. So you might already feel that this might be a hard program to get in. We are a small class size and we have a lot of applicants every year, but I want to say that feel free to apply, because we're not just looking for test scores. We're not just looking for like a single part of you. We're looking for good team workers. We're looking for like friendly people to work with. We're also looking for diversity. That's really important. So feel free to apply, and I do feel like there's always a chance for you, whatever your background is, whatever your other perspective is coming from. So yeah, I think that's going to be my closing word for all of you who's going to the application season, and there's also a lot of other schools standing there for you. So
Perfect. Charlotte?
Yeah, so I don't know how much we actually covered this, but something I feel like everyone should know is this is really hard. This was, I mean, I've only really done undergrad thus far, but this was definitely the hardest academic experience of my entire life, hands down. It was really tough, and it was a lot of late nights, and it was a lot of, pushing myself way harder than I even thought was possible. On that note, though, the bond that you build with the people who you're working with, and your professors for that matter, and people like Allison, is shocking. I was, working till late with people the first week. We were having like sleepovers by week 2, and like to this day we're going on trips together. It was I genuinely miss it, despite it being so hard. But it's really such a close-knit, collaborative environment where you really learn from everyone because everyone has something really, really different going on. And yeah, it was genuinely one of the best decisions I made. I'm so happy, and Emory's awesome, and Atlanta's nice, it's warm. So you may as well choose an MSBA in a great place.
Wonderful. And I'm reviewing the questions, and I really feel like we have really covered a good number of them. So at this point in time, I think we can end the web chat. But please know that if we did not answer your question, you can reach out to us at any point in time. As Frank and Charlotte mentioned, they are available via LinkedIn. And you certainly can email me or my colleague Kip, and we will answer any of those specific questions we have. Just in closing, I would like to say, first of all, congratulations for taking the first step and joining this web chat. I think that this truly indicates your passion and desire to be part of this program. And so I think that hopefully now you have enough information and motivation to apply to the program and really take your first step to become a business data scientist. I don't think this is something that any of you will regret. The job market and the business world right now is just so many opportunities for people that can speak the data, technology, and business languages, and truly your path will be whatever it is that you want it to be with these skills. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and hope you enjoy the rest of your year, and hopefully we will see you in Atlanta very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.